Let's do this. The Cult of Hockey podcast by the faithful and for the faithful. I'm David Staples of the Edmonton Journal, and I'm here today with Bruce McCurdy. Welcome, Bruce.
Hey, David. How you doing today?
I'm doing well. I'm looking forward to August 1st, Bruce. Looking
Uh-huh.
forward to August 1st. And the first, what should be that day, I think, we'll see who plays first. It might be the Eastern teams that play first. I don't know. I don't know how it's going to work, but we might see the Edmonton Oilers against the Chicago Blackhawks on August 1st, 2020.
Did they do away with the exhibition games they talked about doing before? They were going to have 2 exhibition games for team. And I thought I heard a whisper in the wind last week that those were no more. And I haven't heard any more.
I don't know. I haven't heard a whiff about that. We've heard, so the news today is that the NHL and NHLPA have come out with a kind of a formal agreement, which they've announced. It still has to be ratified by the Players Association and by the owners, Board of Governors. I think that is as sure a thing as you're going to find at this point, that it's going to be ratified by both groups. It's on both a 4-year CBA extension and a return to play protocol, which will see the games. I think Edmonton's mentioned Edmonton Toronto by name now officially, although I didn't see that in the press releases. And what we're going to see now is, let me just find the news story. They are, I have to call up Twitter. I think they go to the hub cities. They go to the training camps on the 13th, Bruce.
Mm-hmm.
They go to the hub cities on the 26th.
Wow.
And the playoffs begin on the August 1st. So what do you think?
Well, it seems like a fairly short time between arriving in the hub city and being ready to go. I guess they will have sort of been in a bubble all along. Are they all coming in on charters?
I believe so. Yeah, I got those dates right. 13th, 26th, and the 1st. So, yeah, not long in the hub city. So it doesn't sound to me, Bruce, like there's going to be, although maybe in those first few days, maybe in that week. I mean, they're in training camp for 2 weeks before then, right?
That's the danger time to me, is that phase 3 in the training camps.
Exactly. Until they get out of the United States, which is, having a huge outbreak of infections. It's always hard to tell, of course, whether like I heard one expert today saying they have way more cases in the United States. They're just finding a fraction of them with their increased testing. So It's always hard to know, like, when did they have the most cases? Did that happen actually in April, or is it happening now? It's just a mess, like honestly. So I don't even bother guessing, but there's a lot of, I think it's safe to say there's a crap load of cases, to put it politely, in the United States right now. Not so much in Edmonton and Toronto right now. Those are the safe things we can say.
But we can look forward to 8 planes full of 50 passengers from various places around the United States, plus 3 more from various places around Canada, plus the various ways our players from Edmonton's own team get back and where they come from and everything. And that's going to make some people nervous. I don't think there's any 2 ways about it. And that's right when we first shut down, David, you and I talked about having games in empty buildings. And I said that's going to be the issue, is the travel and the incoming players. And they've worked things through, but it's still going to make some people nervous.
I think they'll be nervous. Do I personally think there's a realistic chance, what's the percentage chance of spread from an incoming player? It's just extremely, extremely low. It's like a negligible health risk, given the amount of attention around this, given the amount of security around it, given the fact they're coming in, they're traveling from somewhat tight bubbles into an extremely tight bubble. And having, gone through the rules, skimmed the rules for the bubble at Edmonton, the phase 4 bubble, man, this is a very, very tight, secure thing. There's constant testing, masks on their faces. If someone does have it, they'll be isolated in their room. I understand people are nervous, but they're nervous about a lot of things. And is it reasonable or not? I'm not. I would say, if a friend of mine was saying I have this concern, I would say that's probably the least of your worries. I'm worried about going to the hardware store and having a guy coughing as I'm standing there walking by, coughing, hacking as he's walking by, which happened to me on the weekend. That's what I'm worried about. Right. So I think that's realistically a much bigger fear. So.
So now I noticed that every player is going to have his own room. I don't know if that extends to all the staff and so on, but let's say it does, and each team is allowed up to 52 spots in the bubble.
Yeah.
Let's call it 50 per team, 12 teams, 600 spots. Where are all those people going to stay? Where are they going to get 600 rooms?
Well, there's a number of hotels, I think, Bruce, that downtown in Edmonton that are going to be enlisted in this. Not just
Hmm.
not just the Marriott,
Right.
but my understanding is there's about and again, I don't know all the details, but I've heard like Sutton Place,
Hmm.
maybe a few others, maybe the Hotel McDonald for all I know, and I'm just throwing that out there. No idea, but there are a number of nice hotels where people may agree if they're working there, and I don't know. I guess maybe there's a line in the protocol, so I haven't gone through all 40 pages of the fine
Right.
details yet. There may be a
Uh-huh.
line that says whether they're in or outside of the bubble,
Uh-huh.
the staff and all the like. There's all the restaurant staff too, right? They're getting their food from downtown restaurants, and I know there's not a huge economic impact from this, but I'm really glad for those hotels. They are hurting. I'm glad for those restaurants. They are hurting. Like it's going to be
Yeah,
a just a little mini boom
that's for sure.
downtown for some businesses that could really use some business. So, it could be the difference between some of these places, not the hotels, but the restaurants definitely from going out of business or staying in business. So,
Yeah,
um,
they're running on a pretty razor thin margin, if there's a margin at all these days. It's just a
yeah.
matter of finding a way to stop the bleeding, and maybe things like this this thing will help in that respect. It's
Bruce, and this could also set a standard. Like, let's say this is a success, and
hmm
there's other events that need to be held.
hmm
Other this could if we can keep our numbers low here, and COVID doesn't go away. Let's say through the
let's
fall
say.
of 2020 and spring. We can set ourselves up as a place where people can do some business and get things done in an event kind of setting. So I don't know if that's a possibility or not, but we'll see. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. They got to pull this off first, and it's
Yeah,
going to be a
well,
major challenge.
it's a huge challenge, and this is I mean, from an Edmonton perspective, I mean, we're always thinking about from an Oilers perspective, how many series will they go? From an Edmonton perspective, I mean, you're talking about from August 1st to what, October the 15th or something? It's basically half a month per playoff round or better part of it. Certainly they'll be going well into October to award the Stanley Cup, apparently in Edmonton for the fifth time. And it will be, so from the city perspective, that's quite a big bubble for quite a long time. And
Yes.
I mean, the bubble will be shrinking in a sense, but I was a little surprised, frankly, that they apparently are announcing Edmonton for the semifinals and finals. For two reasons, I was just surprised Edmonton got the nod. But secondly, I was a little surprised they weren't sort of keeping their options open and saying, well, semifinals and finals, if possible, we'll hold them in the cities where the teams are because maybe by October, late September, things will have cleared up enough that we can start doing that. But it sounds like it's just two bubbles, one bigger than the other, and the bigger ones in Edmonton. Go figure.
I think actually we're one of the smallest markets in the NHL. And I
Hmm.
think that actually, in terms of being able to pull this off, I think it might give Edmonton an edge because, again, in
Hmm.
Toronto, there's a lot more. I see a lot more people holding their nose in Toronto and not being enthusiastic about this. There's that people in Edmonton have that feeling as well, but it's a little less. And I think anyone actually involved in this, any individuals working on this as support staff or the rest, they're going to be excited because this is a big deal in Edmonton,
Hmm.
a bigger deal in Edmonton than it's going to be in most other maybe any other NHL market except for maybe Winnipeg or probably Winnipeg. It would be a huge deal there. This is a big deal here. So I think in terms of like having people hepped up about doing a good job and going the extra mile, which is a huge thing in terms of pulling off any event. You need people committed and you need them to go for it. I think that will work for Edmonton here. Um, so I wish everyone involved in this. I
Yeah.
wish you guys wish you well. I hope you are successful at this event, and I expect. Listen, I expect you will be. I've got full confidence in Edmontonians about pulling off an event like this. So,
Wow. And yeah, and I mean, it's the Edmontonians are part of the equation, but the incomers, the tourists are a big part of that equation too, and the overarching governance of the NHL. But all of those member teams, of which they're going to have 12 in this town, so it's going to be a challenge for those guys and their, the lifestyles they're used to be pulling in their horns to the degree that you're supposed to, always wearing that mask, without exception and so on. And we'll see how able they are to stick to these protocols.
yeah. So 20-year-old males, high testosterone levels, Bruce, you have some questions about that. So do I, actually.
I don't have any questions.
I don't have any questions about it either.
my questions are how do they suppress all that?
That's the problem. You have no questions about it, and neither do I. Bruce, how many players? So this is a really good thing that they brought in. It's kind of no questions asked. If you don't want to participate and you're a player, you don't want to participate in this for what, and you don't have to even say the reason. You don't have to participate. How many players do you think on the 24 playoff teams will opt out? And how many players on the Edmonton Oilers will opt out? If you want, I can go first, but go ahead.
Oh boy. Yeah, one wonders if that might be some big giant loophole where you have a mass defection, and if it were to hit even one team in any kind of significant way with, it's several players. But I'm conservatively going to say one player per team, and I'll pick one for the Edmonton Oilers as well.
I'll be shocked if any Edmonton Oilers sit out. At least players on their team currently, like the players, like maybe there'll be an AHL player who's thinking, oh, geez. But even them,
refuse the invitation as opposed to
how could you do that? Okay, I'm going to say 0 for the Oilers. Any team with a realistic chance of winning the Stanley Cup, Bruce, I'm going to go 0. Except for, of those teams, let's say there's 10 teams that have a really good shot at the Cup. There might be one person who really does have a major health implication that will outweigh anything else. But I think with the teams that are like the Oilers that have a real shot at it, I don't see any of them sitting out. And I'm going to say in total there will be 3.
Okay.
3 out of the 24 teams.
Oh, okay. You're being
3 players.
So not a mass defection at all, but almost a perfect attendance, eh?
I wouldn't be surprised if it's perfect attendance, but I do think there'll be 2 or 3.
Well, I guess, Drew Doughty, he might have sat out if LA was a cup contender, but somehow I doubt it. But since his team is not good enough to even make a giant 12-team playoff, since his team isn't good enough to make that, I guess we won't know. Same with Ryan Kessler. He might have just simply said, Edmonton, I ain't going there no matter what, and sat out. But because his team isn't good enough to make even expanded 12-team Western Conference playoffs, I guess we won't find out for sure about him either. There, I got my barbs in. Those guys have tormented Oilers fans for years. And not just with their antics on the ice, but some of the sort of loose lip crap that they pull off. So
yeah. Let us not worry about snot-nosed millionaires right now, Bruce.
Oh, well, I'm worried about getting my barbs in. Some of us have been waiting a long time.
Okay. We're going to talk about a couple other things here. I think we've handled that. We're going to talk about, there we go. Something happened to my screen there. Everything good? All right.
Yeah.
I hit the wrong button for a second. Okay, we're going to talk about some of the Oilers prospects that we've been writing about lately. Cooper Marody, Kirill Maksimov, and Olivier Rodrigue. Did we talk about Lindstrom? We did a little bit last time, didn't we? Yeah, we did. So those 3 guys are coming on up.
Stuart Skinner, I guess. I'm not sure we talked about Skinner, but I'll mention him briefly while we're talking about Rodrigue.
Okay. And then we're going to talk about the fact that it looks like there's also a deal in place to play in the 2022 Olympics and the 2026 Olympics. And Bruce, I think there's really interesting and there's a couple interesting Oilers stories here about Edmonton Oilers who may make Team Canada. And in that category, I would put two players, and I'm going to write about one of them right away, is Darnell Nurse, and the other one's Nugent Hopkins. McDavid's on the team. But I think both RNH and Nurse have really good chances to make the team. And so why don't we just start there with Darnell Nurse? I've done a poll. I actually put the wrong date on which Olympics it was. I put the 2020 Olympics, but I think everyone got it on the question that I meant the 2022 Olympics.
Right.
And I asked, will he make it or not? And only about 1 in 5 people said yes, that he will make it. So, and you know what? If it just off the top of your head, I think that's not crazy talk. Like, I mean, it makes intuitive sense that he wouldn't make it, because he's not generally seen, I think, as a Norris Trophy candidate or one of the top defensemen in the NHL. But here's what I'm going to say, Bruce. If they decide to go, and they have done this in recent years with the right-left combination, and depending on the coach, that could be a huge fixation. Let's say it's Dave Tippett. But even the only time in recent years where they didn't go was the 2000 and you got to go back, I think, to the 2004 World Cup, and maybe to Turin, where they went with 5 lefties at the 2004 World Cup. And I have the numbers here. Let me just find it. So with the right, here's the candidates for right shot defense. Okay,
Sure.
Chris Letang, Shea Weber, Brent Burns, who's probably going to be too old, Dougie Hamilton, Colton Parayko, Alex Pietrangelo, Ryan Ellis, Aaron Ekblad, Cale Makar.
Ooh.
Bruce, the challengers on right D, we are going to be stacked on right D. They're going to have a hard time cutting down.
Right.
I would say of that group, I like Pietrangelo, definitely. Makar, I think, definitely. And Hamilton and Parayko are strong contenders as well. And maybe they'll go with an old... Oh, there's also Drew Doughty. There's also Drew Doughty, who he's born in 89. So he in 2000 he'll be 33. 32.
I think it was 20 when he won the Olympic gold in 2010.
He'll only be 32, and if he can get his shit together again as a hockey player, and to all due respect to Drew Doughty, he's a fantastic hockey player. I don't want to. We're all a little bit ticked at him for various reasons, but he is a fantastic hockey player. But he has been down in recent years.
Easy to understand how a guy like him. And there's a few guys on all 3 of the California teams, to be frank, who've been up for a lot of years, and their team was going in the tank, and the motivation had to be going spiraling down the drain. For these guys are used to contending for California teams, to be frank, who've been up for a lot of years, and their team was going in the tank. Had to be going spiraling down the drain. For these guys are used to contending for for the cup, and all of a sudden they're on teams that can't get out of their own way, and that's highly demotivating, especially for some of the ultra competitive players. They need to be seriously competing to be at their best. And so both the guys I dissed earlier, Doughty and Kessler, fall under those. So there's some way of understanding. Kessler's actually injured and basically done, but Doughty, he just had a horrible, no good season. And it doesn't tell me that he's done. It just told me that he was done with this year.
Listen, if a 32-year-old Drew Doughty on your Olympic team in 20, that's awfully tempting. Like, honestly, like with all his experience and unless he's injured and really has lost a step, which happens to players, so he's on the right side. But here's the left side, Bruce.
Yeah.
Here are the top contenders for the left side. Okay, there's Jake Muzzin, who's the same age as Doughty, and from my understanding, his plays dropped off a little bit in Toronto. There's Thomas Chabot, kind of a young offensive defenseman in Ottawa. Morgan Riley, strong young offensive defenseman in Toronto. Shea Theodore, and Darnell Nurse. Those are the 5 guys on the left side, as far as I can tell. There's Mark Giordano, but he's going to be 36 or 37. I don't see it. There's Josh Morrissey, who's also in the running. There's Samuel Girard, Duncan Keith, who's going to be kind of old by then. TJ Brody, kind of a cut below. Travis Sanheim. Did I say Josh Morrissey? Josh Morrissey will be.
Yeah, Morrissey's he's a very good comparable for Nurse and has been used as one. And they could be battling, in the hunt, but definitely under consideration.
So with those left shot D, and if they decide to go with, let's say, 3 left shot D, I could see Nurse breaking into that group. I mean, I think personally Theodore Riley and Nurse might be strong picks. If you don't need Thomas Chabot on your power play, if you have Kale McCarr and Peter Angelo, let's say, on your top unit, or one running the top unit, one running the second unit, suddenly you don't really need, you want offensive guys also. But so, Bruce, when you rank all of these players, all the top Canadian players on time on ice per game, points at even strength time on ice per game, points, even strength per game, shots, even strength per game, hits, even strength per game, those 4 categories.
Yeah.
Darnell Nurse finishes second.
Yeah.
When you rank them all. Now, that's giving a lot of weight to hits, where he's first. But, like, when it comes to points per 60 at even strength, he's 14th. So he's not exactly, he's not in the very top. He's not in the top 10, but he's just below it.
14th among left shot defensemen?
All Canadian defensemen.
All Canadian defensemen.
All Canadian defensemen in the NHL, he's 14th for points per 60.
And this
time
is
on
over
ice per game, he's 3rd.
Which what's
last year?
This is past season only? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I can tell you this from the last 3 seasons, combined from 2017 to 20. Left shot Canadian defenseman for points, just not per 60, but just total even strength points. Morgan Riley had 98, Mark Giordano 92. Next lefty on the list, Darnell Nurse, 85 points, 3rd among Canadian defensemen. Thomas Chabot had 83, and on down the list it goes from there. So it's going to be, I think, he's definitely in the conversation. And the thing is, I mean, I'm looking at even strength points. If you're looking for overall points on a defenseman, I think he's 38th in the league over those 3 years and 16th in even strength points because he doesn't play much power play. And most of the D-men that rack up the points get half their points on the PP. And in Darnell's case, that's just not so. He's got 85 points at evens and 100 overall. But here's the thing. Team Canada doesn't need 6 D-men that can all run the power play, right? They need D-men, a couple guys who can specialize in that, and that they'll have high-skilled defensemen on the team. They need guys who can kill penalties, and they need guys who can munch even strength minutes. And Darnell Nurse does the last 2 of those things. And so you would think he'd be under consideration. I'm not sure he's a favorite, but I can't imagine that he wouldn't be on the whiteboard, so to speak, at that, forecasting the team from this far out. And I mean, 2 years from now, he's going to be better. Or some of these guys like Giordano and Keith and so on are going to be, 2 years or year and a half older.
I think they're not realistically in the running. I think Doughty and Letang are still in the running based on their play and their age. I don't really think Muzzin's in the running. He made it 1 year to the World Cup team, but Theodore obviously he's the top D-man in Vegas. He's a really good hockey player. Morgan Riley. There's no total locks, Bruce, on the left side. And now they might go with like 5 righties and two left shot guys. Maybe they will. Maybe they'll think, hey, we can move Colton Parayko or do we really want to leave Colton Parayko off the team? Do we really want to leave Aaron Ekblad? Maybe, like, he's an up and coming defenseman. Do we want to leave Ryan Ellis? Like he's a very clever player. He could maybe move over. So we'll see. Maybe some of these right shot guys already play the left side, and I don't even know that. I don't think so, though. I don't think that's the case. I think Kale McCarr, if he doesn't get injured, he's the closest thing I can see to a lock. Like you want Kale McCarr running your power play, I do believe, in the Olympic game.
Certainly. Yeah. No, at this distance, he looks like Drew Doughty in 2010. I'll say that about Kale McCarr, but that's a ways off, and he needs to keep growing. And he looks like a guy that's going to dominate for a few years. But
Peter Angelo's pretty much of a lock, you'd have to think. I mean, because what I noticed, and I'm going to write about this person. They do put a lot of weight in experienced defensemen on that team. There's a huge, of course, most of them, the vast majority are guys between the ages of 24 and 31. But usually there's one or two guys who are 33, 34, 35 on these teams. Now, maybe that's because Scott Niedermayer and Rob Blake were such fantastic hockey players, and maybe there's one in that category now. But I do think Doughty, I would be surprised, actually, if I'm completely honest, if Drew Doughty's not on this team because of his experience.
Well, he's on the whiteboard
World
himself.
Cups, unless he falls off a cliff.
He's on the whiteboard himself, and he's got 2 Olympic gold medals and 1 World Cup gold medal, as I recollect things.
He's 2010 and 2014, 2 gold medals. Sochi and
2 gold
Vancouver,
medals, and then the World Cup of Hockey.
That's right. That's all we've had in terms of big tournaments. I mean, Canada's record, Bruce, in these tournaments this century is, except for Turin, it's unblemished. We've won
World
it every
Cups
time.
And 3 out of 4 Olympics, and that even in the last Olympics, the Canadian team did pretty good, and that was back with amateurs again. But I mean, the best on best tournaments, Canada's record is very good indeed, and especially in the 21st century. It's all that Oiler content in Hockey Canada, David. You know this. I was watching the 2000.
They know a thing or two about winning.
I was watching the 2004 World Cup of Hockey final game the other day, and they showed the press. They zoomed into the press box, and it was Kevin Lowe with Wayne Gretzky and the future Oilers GM Steve Tambellini. And then they zoomed in behind the bench, and there was future Oilers coach Pat Quinn with future Oilers coach Ken Hitchcock. Both already white-haired coaches, and they were both like 5 and 15 years respectively away from coaching for the Oilers, and they're already white as snow, silver foxes behind the bench. But it's funny how all that overlapped a little bit anyways, and Ryan Smith and Eric Brewer on the ice as well, right? So it was a nice that was a nice collection.
I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, depending on how the Oilers do in this year's playoffs and next year's playoffs, obviously, Ken Holland could be deeply involved in assembling Team Canada. He could be one of the Tippett could be the coach. I mean, it's just really at this point, it's going to be flavor of the month, and whoever wins the cup this year, especially I think this year, will have a real advantage going into being the Olympic team coach, because they may name it before well, maybe not. They probably next year they'll wait, but we'll see.
Well, hopefully by February 2022, which is 18 months from now.
Yeah.
That it'll actually be a going concern again.
Oh,
I think international sports are in big trouble for the foreseeable short term.
Yeah. I think one way or another, Bruce, will be going full steam ahead by 2022. I'd be surprised. The bigger concern to me is political. I mean, with the way things are going south between relations between China and the West, that's is a boycott out of the question? Yeah. That was one of the.
No, it's definitely not out of the question.
It is definitely not out of the question, because it's getting ugly. I mean, it's ugly in Hong Kong, and there's all kinds of issues. So, all right, let's not discuss those though. Let's talk about Oilers prospect, which is kind of more up our alley. I'd suggest.
It's the cult of hockey, not the cult of politics, eh?
Yeah. Bruce,
Global affairs. Yes. Anyways,
let's
uh,
start with Cooper Marody, and then we'll go to the goaltenders, and we'll finish off with Maksimov.
sure.
Okay. So Cooper Marody, what do you think personally of his chances of becoming a NHL player who, let's say, plays 4 or 5 seasons in the NHL, 400 or 500 games, maybe third line winger? What do you think the chances of that, would you say? Which is
Yeah.
the ceiling, I'm saying, for Cooper Marody, but
Yeah. Okay. Non-zero. I mean, it just depends which guy is the guy that comes to play in 2021, and is it the guy that ripped up the AHL as a rookie, averaging 1.1 points per game, very good output for a rookie, and kept it up for the whole season, or is it the guy that missed a bunch of time, never really had it together, was battling some physical things, and
concussion.
I think some mental things, and I mean concussions, kind of both, isn't it?
Yeah,
And
totally.
and
Horrible.
he yeah, and so the season was a write-off, but the question, I mean, sometimes those guys never get it back, and other times, they come back. So which guy is it? The Cooper Marody that I saw in 2018-19, I had a pretty reasonable expectation that he had an NHL career in front of him, or at least was going to get a real crack at one. And, uh, he's going to have to make it stick on performance. It's not like he's going to get given a chance like he was a first round draft pick. And it's not like, he's going to have to earn his way in, which he didn't do this past training camp, uh, and find a way to contribute. And I mean, it's probably not there for his, gifted defensive play. So he's going to have to find a way to produce points and at least hold his own on the other side of the puck. And he's a reasonable bet, but I would say 1-3.
I
You
was
know,
about to say 1-3. I think it's a 1-3 bet. This kind of player, last year I would have said 50-50, I think, after that great season where he got
60-40.
1.1. I think he was 21 years old. This is a pretty remarkable accomplishment to
Yeah.
do that as a 21-year-old in the AHL, rookie AHL player. And he was just flying around the ice. I've often said, like, the Patrick Kane of the AHL. That's, at that level, that's kind of his level of dominance. And I thought, here's what I liked about his game. Sean Patrick Ryan, who works with us on the prospect rankings, he talks about what he's looking for in players is what he calls NHL translatable skill, like some skill that's so good, it's going to get you that NHL. It's going to get the notice of an NHL coach and keep you in the league. It could be skating, and it could be something or shot. But with Marody, the thing that I really like, and the thing I think he has, is he has an ability to take and make passes that is really at a high level. So
Mm-hmm.
I think he could combine on the wing, like he could be the Willie Lindstrom to Anderson and Messier for a couple of years. He could be that guy who's the third wheel on a really good line and finds just a way
Mm-hmm.
to fit in, to be the glue guy on that line and move the puck to the better players, play some defense, chip in, maybe get 30, 40 points. Like, all kinds of guys have made a career now doing this with Sidney Crosby, right? Like Brian Rust, and
Yeah, yeah.
there's a number of them. They're college players, smart college hockey players who for a couple years figure out how to play with Crosby, and they do really well. And in a salary cap era where you need guys making a lot less money,
Yeah.
that opens up the door for Cooper Marody as well in that role.
Yeah. Well, I mean, last year I thought the guy Cooper Marody had to beat out and ultimately didn't was Sam Gagner. And even though
Yeah.
Gagne had the NHL contract and the big bucks, they could have buried a like amount of his, in fact, a bit more of Gagne's contract in the minors than it would have cost him to pay Marody to replace him. But he just didn't get it done. And I mean, he had these physical issues, as you say, but in camp, he just never really stood out. And Gagne's crafty veteranness shone through, and he won the day and he won the opportunity. But uh, that was the thing. There were so many layers of competition at training camp last year that the guys like Marody and Benson, Bouchard, they had to battle through and basically outperform two or three guys that were, mid-career proven pros, and none of them really did it. So none of those three guys wound up on the team other than Benson got a few games, and it was uh, for Marody to make the team this year. He's going to have to outplay players of that ilk. Not obviously not Sam Gagner himself, or not somebody with 800 games, but some veteran that's been around knows the ropes, and Marody's going to have to just come in here and say, "I'm better than that guy, and I'm going to prove it."
It's a tough job.
Yeah.
You got to be ready for it. You got to be steel yourself to it,
Hmm.
and you kind of wonder if he's going to do that. But I liked what he said. He talked to Bob Stauffer on Oilers Now in
I
June,
liked it
there
too.
was one quote that just hit me over the head. He said, "quote I'm just so motivated more than ever to be a long-time NHL player and prove myself." And I just really liked his guts and his ambition for stating it so boldly like that. I think that's a big part in succeeding is going for it and making it known you're going for it and telling everyone you're going for it and then doing it. He's all in right now, and I wonder if he'll be in the camp. I wonder if he'll be one of the 30 skaters.
Right.
He'll have
So
that.
on the
I think he
cusp,
might be,
on the
and
cusp.
that would be that would be good for him, like to be around that and to get involved in that. So
I know some people were questioning whether he was showing more a devotion to his singing career than his hockey career, but I'm not sure how well founded any of that stuff was. That he did a
yeah,
couple things down there in Nashville in the off season. Does that mean that he forgot about lifting weights? I don't think so, but anyway, he does have options in life. I guess he's quite a gifted musician. I know he did a very fine and emotional tribute to Colby Cave, Agape. That was um, a moment.
yeah. Just sorry, I was just distracted there, Bruce. I was just seeing if there's any more updates on the
So
CBA.
it's been 5 minutes. Must be something.
It has. It's interesting from the CBA, like in terms of changes to the contracts, they just seem very minimal in terms of the extension. It's just like let's just figure out how we're going to split the money and continue on with everything else, and we'll not worry about it for 4 more years. Someone suggested this is Bettman's swan song that he wanted labor peace, and I think that's a
Well,
pretty
good. It's
apt.
about time he did. Three lockouts later. I know, yeah, it's only 4 years, eh? Like it was because we were already extended to 2022 because neither
Yeah,
side exercised their option to pull the plug. So basically extension is, I mean, it seems like 6 years from now, but it's four in addition to the two. So anyway, that's a short one. The other ones were all 8, 10 years, the previous ones.
I guess Chicago's getting Brent Seabrook and Calvin DeHaan back for the playoffs, possibly. So that's interesting. I don't know.
Seabrook, eh?
Yeah, Seabrook. All right, Bruce, the goalies. Kurt
Mm-hmm.
wrote about Skinner, who had, talking to some fans down in Bakersfield, and from what I saw, man, Skinner had a really, really tough year in Bakersfield, and one of the big differences in the team was the quality of the goaltending between
Mm-hmm.
Starrett the year previous and Skinner this year, and Skinner was just not consistent. Some really good games followed by a lot of not good games. So I think Skinner was he 12th on our prospect list, and then
12th, yeah.
yeah, Marody was 11th, and then Kirill Maksimov is 10th, and Olivier Rodrigue is ninth. So you're writing
Right.
about Rodrigue, Bruce.
Rodrigue, yeah.
What
Mm-hmm.
do you think of him?
Well, we now got him. We've shot him up to the top of our goalie rankings. As number nine. So as you say, Skinner was 12, Konovalov, Ilya Konovalov 17, Dylan Wells 26. And those represent draft choices by the Oilers in each of the last four drafts. Wells 2016, Skinner 2017, Rodrigue 2018, Konovalov 2019, and he was a little bit older when they drafted him, so he was already a pro. Well, of those guys, uh, they all played, arguably, they played at the same level this year as last year. Both Skinner and Wells split time between the ECHL and the AHL. Skinner, he went from 41 games in the AHL to 41 in the ECHL to 41 in the AHL. So he really did move up a class, and he did raise his save percentage a little bit in the AHL from the year before, but still not very impressive at 892. I think the verbal on him is better than the numbers on him. And verbal, I mean, it only goes so far, right? I mean, you got to stop pucks.
Yeah.
I mean, I think there was a lot breaking down in Bakersfield in front of the blue paint. It wasn't all on the goalies, and maybe it was a case that the previous year that Stuart had gotten so hot that he'd maybe hidden some of the issues that the team had, but they had no hot goalie in 1920. Whereas Rodrigue, he's the one guy out of all of them that really raised his game this past season. He went from a 902 save percentage in his draft plus 1 year to 918 this year. And he racked up over 30 wins in the QMJHL. QMJHL. That's it. It's got too many. It's too big an acronym. 33 years in a row, he's got over 30 wins for what that's worth. But I mean, what it means, he's played on strong teams and he's been number one goalie on those teams. This year, he only lost 8 games all year, 131, and he got hot down the stretch. In February and March, he played 12 games and only gave in 17 goals. So, it's a spectacularly low number of goals to allow, especially, any junior league. I mean, the Q is not particularly noted for its stranglehold defensive play, but again, how much of it was his team?
Mm-hmm. I just want to, my end, you were fading in and out.
Oh, yeah?
So I don't know if that's going to be picked up in the recording.
Okay,
Nothing you're doing. It's just lost connection. No, it's not. Just in case if listeners are hearing what I'm hearing, you kind of faded out. But the gist of it was that of all those goalies, Rodrigue's save percentage shot up quite a bit this year, and Skinner's and Wells didn't. Correct?
Yeah, he shot. Yeah, Skinner's went up a little bit in the AHL level, but it's hard to compare because he only played 6 games in that league the year before. So Skinner jumped a league. Rodrigue, just in his last year and especially his last 2 months of junior, he was dominant. And he was on the Team Canada World Junior, but he was the number 3, so I never saw any ice. But he had one little slump just before he went off to that tournament, and otherwise he was rock solid. I think he had 4 shutouts in February and March.
He's a smaller goalie, though, right?
Yes.
Like 6'1", 6 feet?
6'2", I think.
Because Skinner's a big hulking guy. He's
like
6'4", 200 or
5. Yeah. The other 3 guys none of them's huge. Konovalov's 6'0". I know that because I just wrote about him a while back.
And Skinner, I mean, there's still time. Like it can take goalies a while, and they can suddenly catch fire and become. It's not unheard of. Like he could easily have a big year where he has like a 920 save percentage in the AHL, and he's like, oh man, he's going to be the Oilers' backup goalie. So Stuart Skinner's got lots of hockey ahead of him, and hopefully with the Edmonton Oilers, and he'll probably be their starting goalie again this year. Maybe I've heard Bob Stauffer talk about them bringing in an AHL, NHL tweener to help out there, and maybe Rodrigue then would be their Wichita goalie. I guess they just signed that deal with Wichita. Maybe he'd get most of the starts in Wichita. Maybe he'll play 50, 60 games in Wichita if they play that many games in Wichita, which is a big question mark. Hey, I talked to Casey Kesselring, who's Michael Kesselring's father, and he mentioned that there is going to be some sort of U.S. college season. They just don't know exactly what it's going to be, but he was quite certain. So because we were wondering whether Kemp and Kesselring might want to come out and maybe go pro this year if there's not going to be, but he was pretty certain that there's going to be something, just as an aside.
I heard that podcast and I enjoyed it very much. I learned quite a bit about the U.S. High school, prep school, college system from Casey Kesselring, and I thought you did a pretty good job having an actual expert in the second seat. That was a real change for you. You did well.
Well, it was good to have one expert on the show as opposed to our usual zero experts. Uh, the usual, we've been going 0 for all these years, Bruce. We've been going 0 for, and we're batting 1 for 900 here. I think I don't know how many podcasts we've done. It's getting up there. I don't think it's that many. I think it's like 400 though we've done.
Oh, it would be a good number by now because basically we did every game I think for the last 3 years. Then we do a post game 3 years now at least.
Yeah,
So
since
we were doing them sort of
2016, 17.
odds and sort of weekly or bi-weekly for a while there, and then we started doing every game post game, and
Yeah.
then it's been 100 a year since we started doing that.
Maksimov, Kirill
Mm.
Maksimov. He is number 9 on our list,
Mhm.
and man, he did not have a great
Mhm.
AHL season to start off. He did. Sean Patrick Ryan's a big fan of his. He'd been touting him
Yep.
from his play in Major Junior, and from Sean's post. If you read it, you don't even have to read it that carefully or closely to notice there's a fairly strong hint of criticism of Jay Woodcroft in the
Very strong.
post. Yeah. And whether that's it's a fair comment based on you have this
Sure.
young player. He's not even getting power play time. That's his specialty. He's got a big shot. Um, but Sean did mention maybe the coach is getting a message across to this player, like to make the NHL kid, you're going to have to be a different kind of player and work on a different aspect of your game, and that's got to be your focus. And I don't think that's probably a fair point from the coach. He's looking at this player and he's thinking, yeah, I can see Alex Chase on here. And this is our friend Joseph on Twitter, at Joseph JK, made this comment, and as a comparable. And Woodcroft may be seeing the same thing. This is Alex Chase on a kind of a big, physical, tough winger who can skate a bit, average skater at the NHL level with a big shot. And that he can have a job in the NHL, but he's not. Maybe he's got to become a checker if he's going to have any hope. He's got to become a checker and a hustler. And now, when I watched him play this year, I saw a hustler. I saw a kid going for it in games and working hard on the boards. I didn't see a kid having a ton of success yet, but maybe that's
Right.
to come.
No, SPR was quite complimentary on his work ethic and just his general being a pain in the butt to play against
Yeah,
stuff. I mean, that's super important, and we all know that not every rookie hits the AHL with hits the ice skating, so to speak. I mean, Caleb Jones, how much did he struggle in his first year? And by the end of his ELC, he was in the NHL with a 2-year extension. And I mean, Maximov was picked, same general area in the draft as Caleb Jones was, and I mean, those guys you typically expect. Well, they're going to have to go back for their last 2 years at junior, and then it's going to take them most of their ELC. And even if it works out, we probably won't know until draft plus 5, as was the case with Caleb Jones. I still have pretty high hopes for Kirill Maksimov, even with a 5-goal rookie season. I mean, there was stuff that, as Sean pointed out in that article, that didn't really go his way, and it didn't sound like he ever got on any kind of a hot streak. Sometimes the snipers like him, they'll in 2 weeks they'll pound in 7 or 8 goals, and then all of a sudden that total is starting to look good, right? Even if they have cold snaps throughout the season, but obviously that never happened for him. To me, I've seen him in a few of these rookie camps and development camps, and he looks like a sniper. Like he has got a great release and an excellent shot. So I think he's got a good chance of being the next Alish Kodalik.
there's a nice comparison. Here's another one, Bruce. Tyler Pitlick. So in
Okay.
Tyler Pitlick's first year in the AHL, he's 62 games, 23 points. His
Yep.
second year, 44 games, 10 points. His third year, 39 games, 22 points. So by his third year, he's kind of getting it together as a second line AHL winger, and he gets some NHL games that year, and
That was
then he's
the
kind of
year.
back and forth. And he's been in the NHL the last 4 seasons.
Mm-hmm.
So that could be the path for Kirill Maksimov, and I'm still Sean's really high on this player. Like
Mm-hmm.
he's been very enthusiastic about him.
Yeah.
When I've seen him, it's looked good to me. So I don't have anything to say against him. And so good luck to him. He may have a chance to play on a first or second line this year in Bakersfield. I mean, just think if he gets a chance to play with Marody and Benson, say, or now is Raphael Lavoie a right shot as well?
Yes, he
Uh,
is.
okay, so there's going to be
And
he's
he's
going
a
to have
shooter as well. He won't be on
another
Lavoie's
shooter, right?
line, I
Like
don't
this is going
think.
to be real competition. But
Mm-hmm.
if those two guys could easily be their first and second line wingers
Yes.
this year, and there should be lots of opportunity for both of them. So we'll see. We'll see. And hey, competition's great. Like from an Oiler fans perspective, I'm glad we've
100%.
got a couple real NHL prospects in the in our top 10 and in Bakersfield this coming season, and we'll see what both of them can do. I mean, Lavoie is going to have the same challenge that Maximov had last year. It's jump from major junior to pro, playing
Mm-hmm.
against like almost all the most hopeful and talented NHL prospects in the AHL. It's a very, very good hockey league, and we'll see how they do this coming year.
Yeah, well, it's funny this year, like the last year, Sean, the Oil Knight, wrote our 4 prospect reviews of the 4 OHL players that the Oilers had in their
Yeah,
system. And this year, 4 out of 4 of those guys all jumped from the OHL to Bakersfield. In Maximov, McLeod, who often played together, and uh, also Sam Orkov and Bouchard, the
Bouchard.
2
Yeah,
defenders. And of course, all 4 of those guys are in our top 10. And Sean has graciously agreed to, because he continued to follow their careers with interest this year in Bakersfield. Of course, he
yeah.
could see all 4 guys by watching one game, which is really useful. So he will be providing detailed updates on those other 3 guys in the days to come as well. We won't tell you who's ranked first, but we will tell you that those other 3 names I just mentioned are all ahead of Kirill Maksimov, who's the lowest of the 4 at 10, top 10 in the team. So
Yeah,
that's been a big pipeline that especially that 2017 draft was
yeah.
was important.
Maximov, 53 games, 13 points, and 5 goals. So yeah, not a hugely, not what he would have hoped, the player would have hoped, that's for sure,
Hmm.
coming into that. But he's only 20 in a league where let's see what he does when he's 21. Let's see what he does when
Finding
he's
his way,
22, and then we'll
finding
know.
his way. Yeah,
Yeah, then we'll know.
yeah. If he can find his way onto the left circle on the power play, you never know. That goals total could really take a bump. And on the other hand, if he's just playing a regular shift, if he improves to 15 or 18 or 20 goals, that's a big step, right? He just can't afford to have another year with 5.
Wonder if Josh Curry comes back or not. That'll be interesting to see because he might play ahead of one of Lavoie or Maximov, but
Mhm.
see how that goes. Well, Bruce, let's. I think that covers the ground we were hoping to cover tonight. So, want to leave it there? Any other
All right.
thoughts?
Nothing that comes quickly to mind. I'm sure we'll have another podcast so we can catch up on whatever happens next. Probably we'll hang up on this call and find out that some important thing's been announced, but at least things are being announced now after all those weeks and months of radio silence.
It's getting serious now. I mean, almost everyone is back at the Oilers camp. I don't know if the Swedish players are in yet or not, but
Mhm.
uh,
I
other than
heard that
that, like everyone's there.
the big 3, I think of these guys as the core players, rightly or wrongly. Obviously, rightly with McDavid and Draisaitl, but I put Nurse in that sort
Me
of
too.
inner core
Yeah.
of 3 guys. And I'll never forget the 2015 Dev Camp and the 2015 Rookie Camp when all 3 of those guys were there, and you could see the team sort of renewing before our eyes. And to me, they're all members of that inner core, and uh, they all came back to camp, I guess, on the same day, and I think that was the day that you might as well put the Oilers logo back out on the ice and on the chests of the players. That's the team. Our team is back now, and they're now quickly working up towards next Monday's training camp.
I'm getting excited, Bruce. This is getting exciting. It's getting real.
What did it for me? None of those guys. What it did for me was I showed that Oilers tweeted a little video of the Nuge. just doing his thing, skating, doing those little those beautiful skating moves, transition skating moves of his that you see it and you could be 1,000 yards away from the guy and you say that's the Nuge just because of the way the edges work and so on. That was the moment I'm going, yeah, the boys are coming back. The boys are actually coming back.
Yeah, well,
We're out of limbo and we're sort of getting into getting near the real dance.
this past weekend, I was at the rink twice with my
Oh yeah,
daughters. My wife organized a 4-on-4 league,
I'll
all
see.
within Alberta health regulations, and we were
Hmm.
back on the ice. It was fantastic to see the girls
Great.
out there playing. And this, and on Saturday night, Bruce, I'm back.
Oh.
I've ordered guys to like a little adult pickup hockey league,
Hmm.
small cohort of people,
Hmm.
and I'm really looking forward to getting on the ice myself.
With your
So
regular defense partner, or you're going to have a new one?
yeah, she's playing too, and
Uh-huh.
it's just about
Excellent.
sweating for us. It's just getting out there and sweating, and it really is. But it's fantastic to play hockey. It's such a great motivator for staying in shape, and it's such a fantastic sport. So hopefully everything goes well in all of these different groups of players,
Uh,
and
I have a close friend, um, he used to be the video goal judge for the Oilers years ago, and sort of uh, he was a high school teacher here in town, and then elementary school teacher. He retired and he went back to Nova Scotia. And he said to me, I talked to him on Skype the other day, and he said to me, and he's like older than me, probably close to 70. And he said, these 4 months without hockey, he said, I'm so far out of shape that he said, I don't know what, because he's played hockey like the entire time, right, through his entire adult life, right? It's just how he conditions himself is to play and by playing hockey.
yeah, it when you haven't played hockey for a while and you play hockey, it
Hmm.
is mind blowing how hard it is to like that kind of explosive exercise for someone in their late 50s or 60s or 70s. Like to be able to keep doing that is this incredible challenge because you have to be an athlete. You have to actually move. You got to do it. You got to go for it. And it's not
Hmm.
easy. So my daughter's like, yeah, I'm just a spectator essentially. I keep stats high away from everybody else. I just watch it, but I'm not really involved in that. But because you can only be in one cohort, and in this one, I'm
Right.
I'm definitely right on, going to be right on the ice, right in the mix of things,
Sweet.
and we will be. And if anyone's worried, we will be following all of the Alberta health protocols to a T. My wife is an absolute stickler on that, and I'm
Good.
glad to have that because
Hmm.
um, you want to keep everybody safe, and I
Everybody
think it can
needs a
be done.
everybody needs a good referee, right?
Yeah, that's right. Alrighty, thanks, Bruce. Thanks for
Yeah.
talking.
All right. Thanks for listening, everyone.
And in the meantime, and in between times, this has been another edition of the Cult of Hockey podcast.